Climate change has moved more and more into the forefront of global consciousness as natural disasters become more frequent, more destructive, and closer to home. But sometimes there's just too much going on in people's lives to give climate action a serious look. How can one better communicate a call for climate action? We can take it from Marinel Ubaldo, who's been a climate activist for most her life. She's spoken before world leaders in major climate conferences. Living by the shore, Ubaldo grew up close to nature and its wrath.
This is my home, Maderino. So basically, we're facing the Pacific Ocean. So growing up, I have been used to typhoons. I have been used to fleeing. I have been used to evacuating. Parang part na siya ng growing up ko.
A major turning point in her life, the devastating onslaught of Typhoon Yolanda, internationally known as Haiyan, in 2013. The super typhoon claimed thousands of lives.
Alam mo, kahit sinasabi ng scientists na hindi pa ang effect ng climate change yung super typhoon Haiyan, pero na-exacerbate siya ng ocean warming. So, yung mga relatives namin, friends namin, na hindi pa rin nakikita up until now, victim sila ng climate change. Yung experience na yun ng super typhoon Haiyan, yun yung nagpa-change sa akin. Kasi hindi ko na nakita yung climate change na mangyayari in the future. Andito na siya at pinapatay niya na yung mga mahal natin sa buhay.
For Ubaldo, sharing her first-hand experience is the best way to send her call for climate action across.
There's so much power in storytelling. How, parang just, kahit ngayon, hindi ko pa rin na-imagine na a girl from a very remote community in the Philippines would be able to actually speak in front of the world leaders and tell our story. At that point, parang sinasabi ko sa sarili ko na baka walang makinig sa akin kasi hindi naman ata importante yung story ko or story ng community ko. Pero after nung speech at naging interesado yung mga tao, doon ko na-realize na hindi mo dapat din disregard yung voice mo or hindi mo dapat sinasabi na wala lang to or mag-isa lang ako, hindi ko masasabi na emergency na to or hindi ko magagamit yung voice ko. Kasi every voice counts, every person counts sa movement na to.
Experienced journalists echo the need to put a face to climate stories.
Makita mo yung kwento ng isang kapwa mo sa kontekstong yun, mas maiintindihan mo yung storya. Long term is we tend to forget figures and numbers. Yung corny ko lagi yung hugot na sinasabi is parang the mind forgets but the heart always remembers. So when you do stories, it's important na talagang sa puso yung mga kwentong binibigay mo.
Kailangan na yung puso yung story mo. Filipinos, I think, are emotional readers or emotional viewers. They won't, they react better to emotion than facts. And it's your job na parang ipakete mo yung facts mo, yung scientific data mo with a more palatable emotional story to make it interesting.
And they note you can only do that when you have experience on the ground.
I always appreciate being on the ground. It's a very powerful experience to be there with the people and to really hear their stories and be able to provide them platforms. At napakahalaga nito sa mga kino-cover ko na beat, especially din sa mga disasters, for example. Yung mga taong nangangailangan ng tulong, yung mga taong napag-iwanan o hindi nakatiran ng ayuda, or yung mga tao na for several disasters already, they're stuck in that cycle na hindi sila makalabas dahil nga puro short-term yung response na kapag tinamaan sila ng disaster, bibigyan ng ayuda, pero after, walang long-term plans for them. So it's very important to always be on the ground to really see and to bear witness to their experience.
But sometimes, reporting on climate involves complicated data that can be hard to digest. How can one capture the interest of the public?
When reporting on science, highlight how the public benefits. Does this really benefit the public? How can I better package it na mas interesting, 'di ba? Who is your audience? There are different platforms or different audiences. If you're trying to write for mainstream media or for social media, iba yung atake mo sa TV, iba yung atake mo sa print, iba sa online, iba sa Twitter versus Facebook. You need to learn kung ano ba yung pulso ng audience mo. Don't use scientific jargon. It's okay to use jargon if you explain it well in layman's terms, in simple terms na even an elementary student should understand. But at the same time, you should not dumb it down, no? Especially when it comes to science stories. What makes it interesting, I think, is the fact that it's a complex idea. And if you succeed in explaining it to an ordinary person, you've succeeded, no, as a journalist. I used to think that parang it's so hard to sell science stories. But in fact, if you are able to communicate it clearly and in a fun, creative way, the audience will come.
For a more technical look, communications professor Nathan Perez breaks down the basics in crafting a message.
Ano ang gusto nating sabihin? Ano talaga yung gusto nating sabihin? When it's about climate change, ngayon, maraming apektado, maraming aspects ng climate change. What in particularly yung gusto nating doon tayo mag-zero in when it comes to messaging? Pag nalaman mo na kung ano yung gusto mong sabihin, the next thing to think about is, anong tunog ng sasabihin natin? Kailangan bang imposing yung sinasabi natin? Or gusto ba nating magkwento lang sa mga tao and then sa kanila magigets yung grasp ng campaign natin? Or gusto ba natin na ang tone niya ay very scientific? Pwede rin naman, di ba? Or ang tone niya ay tough. Yung tone niya, very matigas, may paninindigan, parang nag-uutos yung dating nung messaging natin, no? So, the tone and the message should always come together. Number 3 is, paano natin sasabihin? The creative elements and visual handles. Napaka-importante na kapag ka nalaman mo na yung message na gusto mong iparating and narinig mo na or meron ka na sa isip nung tone, ngayon, you have the right creative elements na rin para sakyan nung campaign na yon.
So how do you know you've made a successful campaign?
Number 1, nakuha mo reaching the target audience. Okay? Lahat ng campaign, lahat ng nilalabas natin na communication, always remember kung sino ba ang kinakausap natin. Next question, natumbok mo ba? Or na-deliver mo ba yung tamang message? The right message for the right campaign. Kapag nakilala mo na yung audience mo, kapag nalaman mo na kung paano sila magsalita at kung ano yung hilig nila at kung ano yung pinagtutuunan nila ng pansin, malalaman mo na kung paano mo ma-deliver yung message sa kanila. Lastly, to say that a certain campaign is winning, ang sabi nila, ito yung feedback or getting the expected response.
And though sometimes the quest for climate justice can be fraught with hardships, Ubaldo reminds advocates they are not alone.
If you're journalists, if you're advocates, we can help each other in our advocacies. Kasi at the end, tayo lang din yung nagtutulungan. At the end, we share the same vision. At the end, we want the same result. And that is for our children to live in a safe world and for us to also live in a safe world in the next 10 years. Na dadating yung time na okay na mangarap. Na dadating yung time na hindi na tayo matatakot mangarap. Hindi na tayo matatakot na mabuhay. Kasi alam natin na safe na.